to welcome to the Rollability Podcast Network. I am Emily Gomer and am a podcast engineer here. We're excited to bring you another episode of the SB Bridge with Suzanne Plumley. So pass it over to Suzanne to kick us off today.
Well, thank you, Emily. It's hard to believe this is my 11th episode of the Aspie Bridge. And as I always say, and it's very important to know, there are so many wonderful people out on the internet who will tell you what autism is, especially what Asperger's, the formal term Asperger's is, which is level 1 autism. There's so many wonderful people, such as Paul Micallef in Australia on Asperger's on the inside, and Sam Samantha up in Europe does her version of explaining autism, and Sarah Hendricks in the UK, and then all of the wonderful people here in the US that will tell you what autism is. My mission as part of the Aspie Bridge, and I'll tell you about my background in a moment. My mission as on the Aspie Bridge is not just to tell you what autism is, but tell you how to deal with some of the different challenges that we may face when we go across the bridge, which you've seen many times, go across the Aspie Bridge into society. And it's my duty that even though I may bring up some of the different traits that we'll experience, how to work with those traits. So you're not like, well, okay, that's great. Good to know I have that, but what do I do with it? Well, that's what the Aspie Bridge is here to do, is to tell you how to work with that trait so it doesn't overwhelm you. And that's a lot of what today is all about. Now, my background, different from the Aspie Bridge, is actually all about how the importance of having a tidy workspace so that you can prevent information overload and emotional exhaustion. Now, we all know we've all walked into our rooms when they've been not so tidy, papers and books are around. What does that tell you in your mind? Are you ready to sit down and get to work? Well, I know for me, that's a challenge because I look around and I see the things that I should be doing. And we're going to get to that a little bit later on to tell you how to handle that. But the fact that you are looking around your workspace and it's not cleaned up and organized, it's going to have a big effect on how you handle your day and how you're able to get into work, get the process going. Now, this particular background is very interesting. I couldn't pull up my Aspie Bridge, as I said, because the computer wouldn't work on it. It just wouldn't provide it. So let me tell you first. Well, no, I'll tell you about it. This is a workspace. Now, whether or not you go into the society and go into a building and you are given a set cubicle spot to work, or you work at home on a remote job in a she shed, in a corner of your house. I work in the corner of my house right now, and it serves me well, but that doesn't mean that I can be messy if I want to be productive. Now, here's a sample of working in a tidy house. Now, first, let me start by saying pivoting. I know for the last couple of times I've been promising a woman who is also Aspie who will come on to the Aspie Bridge and tell us about inclusivity and some of that. And for whatever reason she never got back to me when I tried to reconnect with her yesterday, 24 hours ago. And rather than getting upset and say, oh no, my show has to be canceled, I can't do it. This show must go on, as they say in circus business. You have to say, okay, that's not my responsibility completely. Yes, I'm in charge of making sure that the show goes on, but I can't be responsible for someone else either not being willing to get onto video, having something come up at the last minute, or just forgetting about the appointment. I can only be responsible for what I can do. So 24 hours, you just have to say, okay, that happened. Becca's not available for whatever reason she has chosen, and that is her choice, not mine. It's okay. It's okay. Take a deep breath if you need to and say, all right, let me see what else I can do. Well, what happens the morning of when they cancel? Well, you have a plan of what you're going to talk about. Can you still talk about those things without another person? Well, of course you can. It just means you don't have the back and forth conversation. Can you recreate your dialogue or monologue, as the case is now, so that you can still get the same important concepts across without going into hyperventilation? And I bet if you take a couple of deep breaths, you certainly can do that. You take the key concepts you were going to talk about and you write out a little bit of an outline of what you really want to say. That's what I do when I'm doing all of my podcasts. I write out an outline of the things I want to cover. So, with or without a guest, I'm not stressed out. One week I did get stressed out, and I was really upset with myself. Not that I was going to get angry, but just the fact that I could have done the podcast anyway. So I vowed for all of you from now on, guest or no guest, I'm going to be here for you. And I promise you that. You can count on me for that. Now, 1 hour before, well, you met Emily at the beginning. She gives me out the link to get onto the Restream. I go into the Restream to set up my background, my Aspie Bridge. My computer has decided it doesn't want the Aspie Bridge on my background today. And you know what? That's okay too, because it gave me a different option. Look at this fun background I can have right now. And it definitely goes to show you what a tiny workspace can look like and make yourself feel comfortable. Let's go on to the next part, as I said. Some of you will go into another location other than your home or a piece of property you own to work. And that's when you need to make sure that your work area, not only where the desk is it going to provide distractions of too much noise, too much light, too much traffic outside, too many sirens that might go by you? Is it going to be conducive to you working your best? And sounds have a lot of bearing on us. Are we going to get distracted by everything else going on around us? Do we have 3 and 4 people in the same workspace where their conversations are going to really unsettle us? That leads sometimes to emotional exhaustion, not because you're necessarily part of the conversation, but you have your own track of thoughts in your mind that you're processing, but you also have a conversation right near you. Now, yes, we can mostly hyper focus if we're really involved in our project, and that's where it's a good thing that we can hyper focus, but not all the time. We're not 100% skilled. Nobody is 100% anything. So you really need to keep in mind that perhaps you can ask to get up and go to another desk where it might not be as noisy for the day. Don't be afraid to ask that. Hey, I know this is my workspace, but I'm getting a little overwhelmed by the noise around me, the meetings around me. Could I move to a private space? I think you'll find you'll get a yes a lot more than you think you will. But that's important. If they do give you a challenge on that, just say, I want to be my best today. And if I'm around meetings that are going on around my desk, I can't serve you the way I would love to serve you. And I can tell you that as soon as you say that, they're going to be more than willing to let you find a quiet space, an unoccupied desk where it might be more conducive. Now, let's just say you're at home, like in this setting, and you go in. One thing you want to do is you want to turn your phone on airplane mode if that's going to distract you, because that will keep the notifications from coming in and distracting you. We're going to talk about that in a little while. But let's just say you're going into your own home. Is it used for other purposes? Do you have a play area near you where the kids might come in and play? Well, you might want to consider your own private room. Now, I know that's hard if you have a limited space. Maybe even a closet you can convert in another room to an office. But the most important thing is to have a space that you can count on being organized so that your mind can process your thoughts one at a time to get the things done. We talked about multitasking. You really want to make sure that you're being very careful not to multitask because then your work is not geared to the one project you have going on at the time. And so I thought I heard something behind me. Hang on there. Um, so, what I would suggest is before you start your day, there are a number of different things that you can do. And I'm going to talk about some of the tools. So, let's see, I think you can see this. One thing is to clear off your desk with a tool that might look like that so that you can put things away so they're not in your visual sight. Maybe you don't have enough room on your desk for something like that. Then you could take a bag and you could put all of the extra stuff on a bag. Did they provide you a filing cabinet? If not, I found that this kind of situation might work out well for you. You want to do it such that anything that is extra on your desk is no longer on your desk. So that when you start to work on the one project that you are supposed to finish by 5 to that day, you don't have 5 projects on your desk that need to be finished by the end of the month. Really gear yourself to that one project and make sure that you can have all of the supplies there. Remember, before you get started, look over the project requirements. Do you have all the paperwork in front of you that you need to finish it? If not, you need to tell your supervisor, manager, whomever they are, that you have the parts where you're missing this particular project. And you need to make sure that they can get it for you. You don't want to tell them at 3 o'clock that you're missing a piece of information if the project is due at 5 o'clock. So you really want to, one, make sure your desk is clear of everything except for that one project. Two, make sure all the components of that project are in front of you so that you don't have to get up and move around too often. And three, you want to listen for what kind of noise might be around you. Are you able to get in and sit down and get to going? Or do you need to find a way to put on headphones? Do you need to find a way that you can put on soft music to take away from some of the other noises that might be around you? So these are just different ways that you can set up your workspace, either at home where you might have little kiddos running around you, or in a public office building. Because we want to make sure that you're not going to get overloaded with information that's just going to make it difficult for you to complete the project you have at hand. And if you have too much noise and too much coming in, you have your phone going off, Facebook is sending you notifications, you're getting emails. If you have too much of that, that's the information overload I'm talking about. You really want to find a way that you can turn off the notifications for a little while so that they're not coming in quite as fast. Put your phone on the airplane mode if that's going to disturb you. You really want to make sure that you can concentrate on what's going on in front of you. Really try and ward off, be proactive at getting all of those extra stimuli out of your vicinity, out of your peripheral. And that's going to lead to success. Now, that was what we had talked about. I showed you the tools, the location of your workspace. Very interesting. I work, as you know, I've told you many times, I've disclosed this. My early morning office hours, as I like to call it, are at Starbucks because I love talking to people in the morning. That is something I enjoy doing. And because the rest of my day is spent at my computer at home, I love the idea of talking to people. Well, you can guess what happens when I'm at the drive through window and all of a sudden a loud, noisy car goes up the street. Am I as focused? No, no. And I have to excuse myself and say, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. But that can be a factor. Let's say we have fire engines going up the street, as so can often happen. You really need to find a way. And if you are near a window where traffic is, again, request that perhaps your desk be moved to a natural setting where you can look out at the forest if that's a possibility. I think that a lot of people worry that if they ask for too many changes, they're going to become a bothersome. Well, it depends on what kind of changes you're asking for. Moving a workspace so you're more productive, fine. Changing the due date of a project, well, that's something you want to be more careful about. They want to make sure that you're coming into work and you're having the best possible conditions to get their project done, not delay it. So be very careful about what you're asking so that they are in a win win situation. You don't want to make it such that, well, I can't work here. I'm going to pick up my whole desk and move it home. I mean, sometimes that's not even possible, but sometimes you might be able to work remotely if you find there are too many distractions. And you can say to them, perhaps a 1 week trial might be conducive to making sure I can complete your projects as you need them. Now, as I said once before, I wish I could take my drive through home, but we all know that that's not possible. That's okay. I don't work there that long for the day, so I can handle it. But, be very mindful of the questions you ask. But you don't want to be asking if you can move the project date unless you find at the last minute that they have not provided the items that they need to provide you, but you've asked for them previously. Let's just say you go in on a Tuesday and say, if you want this project done for Friday, I really need to have the paperwork on my desk by Wednesday. Now, if you say that and they still forget and they don't give it to you until Friday morning, well, now you have a credible reason to say, I asked for the paperwork on Tuesday morning. I asked for it to come to me by Wednesday, so I have more than enough time to finish your project. And if they don't have it to you by Friday, well, then you can have a discussion like, I can't do my best if I don't have all the paperwork or all the project supplies in front of me. That would be the only time you want to ask for an extension. But don't go in on Monday saying, I'm not going to finish this by Friday. If you promise that you could live up to the due dates of each of that particular job, you really need to live up to the due dates. And you need to ask for the required information ahead of time. Now, let's talk again about the ramifications of a disorganized area. Information overload. Oh my gosh, let's just say someone walks by and puts two more pieces of paper on your desk that have nothing to do with today's project. Please pick up those papers and put them in the correct file so that you're not distracted. It's not right if someone's dropping something off that doesn't have to do with your particular project, but it does happen. We're all humans. We all want to be helpful to each other in most cases. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Just look at it and say, oh, this is Wednesday's project, file it away. Keep going. Don't get angry at them because that's going to upset your emotional balance. Don't say, why the heck did you put this on my desk now? That's not going to serve you or them. And it's going to provide an anxious tension between the two of you. A simple thank you, file it away, and then you can keep on going with the project at hand. You really want to make sure your desk is cleared of all things, and that includes extra pens and pencils too. I find I have to take my have only one pencil and maybe one other pencil or pen on my desk at one time. You get a bunch of different tools and supplies, office supplies on your desk. That's as bad as having extra paperwork on your desk. Go in and set up your day and make sure that you only have on your desk what you need. That's a recap. I know I spoke about that already. The next thing is listen. Sit there quietly and listen to the sounds that are around you. Is there a meeting going on? That's information overload as well. And if they're talking too much about what your projects entail, that can be emotional exhaustion because not only are you focusing on what you need to do, you're also trying to listen to the expectations that others think you should do. And let me tell you, I've had that as well, trying to be an authentic me, get my projects done, but also trying to live up to the standards of when other people think my project should be done. You really want to guard against that. If you have headphones, put them on, say, I'm sorry, I need to focus. They may be upset and awkward for you at first, putting on something. Just say, I want to be my best. Okay. So the next thing is emotional exhaustion. As I say, well, I did talk about emotional exhaustion. You really want to make sure you don't have too much stimuli coming in. We'll end that there. I think I talked about that. Now let's talk about digital disorganization. I don't know about you, but 6,000 emails can be a bit much if you're trying to get through your email list for the day. You really want to spend some time making sure that you can cut that down. Now, you may have to ask them if you can take your laptop home to get rid of some of the excess digital so you can concentrate better. I don't know what the answer will be to that, but you may want to plan time to purge out emails that are not serving you for your job. Perhaps you have a personal email that sits on a tab on your desk. Close the tab. You really need to make sure that your digital space is as organized as your physical space. If you have too many emails open or too many tabs open on your computer that you're not using, you may have some that you're using for that project, but the extra ones, close those out. And finally, your notifications on your phone. You don't need to know that Target is having a sale next week and will give you $25 if you buy something. That's just extra information you don't need right now. Yeah, go on lunch and check up on that. That's fine during lunch, but our digital space is just as important as our physical space. Now, let me talk about one last section that can really derail you from getting your projects done on time, whether it's at home and you're a crafter or you're working remotely or the kiddos are coming in from school, whatever the distractions are. Let's just make sure that we can be proactive on how to handle those. So let's take the first one, distraction. You're a mom and you're working from home because it's easier for you to concentrate and away from the noise of the workplace. That's great. Your kids come home from school, they're all excited about what happened for the day. You have two choices. You can either schedule that 15 minutes of your break, not an extra 15 minutes because you don't want to do too much time, but schedule 15 minutes to get to know what their day was like. You'll find that if you allow for that first 15 minutes when they come home from school, they'll be able to find their own way of what they need to do, particularly if they're older. If they're little ones, that might be a different story. You're going to want to employ a mother's helper, which I did when my girls were little. I brought in a high school girl who wanted to go to college for education and I brought her in to be a mother's helper. And while I came in to say hello to my children in the morning or after school, as the case was, to see how their day was going, it was up to the mother's helper to make sure that the snacks were handed out, that they were put away correctly in the garbage, in the sink, whatever, and that homework was started. And at least check to make sure it was done before the kids went out to play. Now, maybe you're a mother who would prefer to have your kids go out and play right away. That's a great way to get back in tune with what you need to do on your work so that you can keep going with your responsibilities of your job, if that's the case. So, you really want to make sure that there are not distractions that are going to keep you or plan for the times when you might be likely to have distractions. But one other fact on that is if you're working at home and you notice that the kitchen floor needs to be cleaned, well, you're going to want to make sure that that is a planned activity for another day when you're not expected to put in hours on your job. Don't let the dirty kitchen floor keep you from your responsibilities at home. You really want to do that, just like the people who are talking around you, the distractions. Get up and find another place to work. You don't want the distractions to hurt you from keeping the job you have or getting the projects done on time that you need to get done. The next thing, dissuasion. You get to your desk and it's like, well, I really don't feel like working on this project right now. Well, I think what you're going to need to do is find the parts of the project that excite you, give you passion. Maybe you can work a little bit out of order in this case to find a part of the project. If there's no part of the project that is exciting you, well, this may not be the best job for you. You do want to find one part, at least at the very beginning of your day, that is going to feed your passion throughout the whole day. If you're finding that you can't find that passion in any part of your project, really sit down and think about if this job is serving you. Because if you're feeling like, oh, I really shouldn't, I really don't feel like doing this right now, or if you're home and thinking, well, I really should be doing the laundry because this isn't exciting, well, that's dissuasion. Or maybe it's saying you really didn't want to do this job anyway. Who are you to be trying to do this job? Well, you have a decision to make. Is this the right job for you? Yes, you have to keep going on the job, but you can start to look for other avenues of passion so that you can get into the right job that gives you the passion to last the whole day. So if you gain the dissuasion, you really didn't want to do this job, it's just a paycheck. Think twice about where your heart is. Now, it may be a higher paying check than some of the other jobs you might have been offered. But if your passion's not there, it doesn't matter what the paycheck is. It's going to be a challenge for you to go through your day and get the projects done. Same thing if you work on your own personal um, business. You need to make sure that you're putting able to put your whole heart into whatever business you're serving, or you need to find one way you can do it. The last one, DEFCON 1. That's an interesting one. Okay, so you've finally gotten the job and you've been handed 5 projects that need to be done today. What do you do? Okay, well, find the job that you can finish first. Find the job that you can finish first, meaning it requires the least amount of time to complete it. Because what's going to happen is that if you start by finishing a project, your endorphins are going to start. Your excitement, your achievement level is going to feel good. And that's going to propel you to the next project that needs to be done. So while some people say, oh, you should really try and do the hardest one first, I would think twice about that. Because the idea is to build up your confidence, build up your achievements. And if you can get a project done in 45 minutes and another project is going to take you 3 hours, you're going to be more focused on the 3 hour job if the 45-minute job is done. So rather than going into the freeze and freak out moment of saying, oh my gosh, how am I going to get this done today? Figure out which project is going to take the least amount of time, clear all the other projects off of your desk, and go to work. And then celebrate. After you finish that first project, get up and get a cup of coffee if you want it. Get up and get a snack if you need it. Go and use the restroom at that time to refresh. Treat yourself to a little something. Go walk around nature if you can for 5-10 minutes to refresh. Come back to your desk and look at the next one. The idea is not to get stressed out by the overload of information. So I hope that all of these tips have really helped you to really set your foot forward and have a workspace that is going to serve you, a workspace that's tidy, free of distractions, provides the right light, the right sounds, so that you can be successful because I know you can. Next week, I do believe I'm going to have a few lawyers here to help you. And they're going to help you with the illegal firings that you may have experienced. I know I have. Illegal firing is when a manager will see a mistake that you made and fire you on the spot because they believe you can't handle the job. That's not okay, especially if some of your coworkers, your colleagues, have made a similar mistake and they get a slap on the wrist and a mark in their file and then they go back to work. It's not okay to be fired for something that another coworker only gets a write up on. That's not appropriate. Now, there are different circumstances of different levels of mistakes. Yes, we acknowledge that. But we also need to be protected in case someone comes by and says, mistake, bye, see you later, pack your stuff. That's not acceptable. Now, let's take it to a different angle and say, perhaps there was a contract that you needed to sign before you started working for this company, a confidentiality contract. And you didn't understand the words in it of how confidential they wanted you to be. Maybe you could talk to your support team, and that was okay to talk about the situation. But outside of that team, it was confidential. You need to understand what the contract for confidentiality is before you sign on it. Are you someone that might slip? You need to know what the ramifications are on that. And I will have some lawyers here to help me next week. They promise me. We'll see. We'll make sure that happens. Now, next month, the second week of April, I'm going to be starting housing. Because now that you have the job and now that you can afford to perhaps have your own home dwelling, what kind of home dwelling would you like to live in? What one is most conducive to your living situation and needs? And which one is going to provide you the most peace? If you don't like someone knocking on your walls next door, then an apartment building may not be the place for you. If you're someone who needs to have 2 bathrooms because you have little ones running around, these are some of the different things that we need to consider in our living independently away from the help that used to serve us before we had these jobs. So next month we're talking about housing and we'll go from there. So I want to thank you very much for coming to the Ask Me Bridge show and being in my different little home setting here, office setting. And I hope you have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for coming today.